Welcome back to AfroNurse Academy. Today, we are moving into one of the most fascinating and deeply relevant topics in your entire psychology course. We are talking about human growth and development. And trust me, once you understand this topic properly, the way you look at every single patient who walks through that hospital door will never be the same. If you are new here, welcome to the family. We are a team of registered nurses who are passionate about helping student nurses and midwives across Africa master their coursework, build real confidence, and become the incredible healthcare professionals that this continent needs. Here is your table of contents for this video. We are going to break this into 5 clear sections. 1. What is growth? What is development? What is maturation? And how are they different? 2. Principles of growth and development. 3. Factors that influence growth and development, heredity and environment, including the famous nature versus nurture debate. 4. Stages of growth and development, from before you are even born all the way to old age. 5. Summary and closing. So get comfortable, grab your notepad, and let us get into it. What is growth? Let us start with the simplest and most visible concept, which is growth. Growth refers to the physical, measurable changes that happen in the body over time. We are talking about increases in height, weight, the size of organs, and body proportions. Think about a newborn baby at Kolebu Teaching Hospital in Accra or at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. That tiny baby is perhaps 50 centimeters long and weighs around 3 kilograms. Fast forward 5 years, and that same child is running around, taller, heavier, with larger organs. That physical change? That is growth. It is quantitative, meaning we can measure it with a tape measure or a weighing scale.
What is development? Now, development is a deeper, more complex concept. Development refers to the progressive changes in function, skill, and ability that happen as a person matures. It is not just about getting bigger, it is about getting better, more capable, and more complex. For example, a baby starts by making random arm movements. Over months, that baby develops the ability to reach deliberately for objects. Then they learn to grasp, to hold, to clap, and eventually to write. None of those skills are purely about size. They are about the brain and body learning to work together in increasingly sophisticated ways. That is development, and it is qualitative, meaning we describe it rather than just measure it. What is maturation? The third concept is maturation. Maturation refers to the natural unfolding of biological processes that are genetically programmed, meaning they happen automatically as long as the environment is reasonably supportive. Maturation does not require specific training or teaching. Here is a perfect example. A child in rural northern Nigeria and a child growing up in Nairobi will both, at roughly similar ages, develop the ability to walk. One child is not taught walking step by step, and neither is the other. The brain and nervous system mature on a biological schedule, and walking emerges naturally. That is maturation at work. The key difference here is that growth is about size, development is about function and ability, and maturation is about the automatic biological timing of those changes. They are related, but they are not the same thing. Right, if those 3 concepts are making sense to you right now, do us a favor and hit that like button. It really helps our channel grow so we can keep creating these free resources for student nurses across Africa. Now that we understand the basic terms, let us talk about the principles that govern how growth and development actually happen. These principles apply to every single human being, regardless of where they are born, what tribe they belong to, or what family they come from.
Principle 1. Growth and development are continuous. The first principle is that growth and development are continuous processes. They do not stop and start randomly. From the moment of fertilization through every stage of life, change is always happening, even when we cannot see it. An elderly woman in a village in Zambia is still developing cognitively and emotionally, even though her physical growth stopped decades ago. Principle 2. Growth and development follow a predictable sequence. The second principle is that they follow a fixed, predictable sequence. A child must learn to sit before they can stand. They must stand before they can walk. They must babble before they can form words. The sequence is the same for all children, even though the timing may differ slightly from one child to another. Principle 3. Development proceeds from the general to the specific. Third, development moves from the general to the specific. A baby first learns to move the whole arm in a sweeping motion before they can use just the fingers to pick up a small object. The large muscle movements come before the fine, precise ones. Principle 4. Development proceeds in a cephalocaudal direction. Fourth, there is a principle called cephalocaudal development. This is a term you will see in your exams, so let us break it down. Cephalocaudal comes from the Latin words for head and tail. It simply means that development begins at the head and moves downward toward the feet. A baby gains head control before they gain trunk control, and they gain trunk control before they gain leg control. Principle 5. Development proceeds in a proximal-distal direction. Fifth is proximal-distal development. Proximal means near, and distal means far. So this principle says that development proceeds from the center of the body outward to the extremities. The trunk and core develop before the arms and legs, and the arms and legs develop control before the hands and feet. Principle 6. Individual differences exist. The sixth and final principle to highlight is that there are individual differences in the rate of development. While the sequence is universal, the pace is not. Some children walk at 9 months, others walk at 14 months. Both can be completely normal. As nurses, this is critically important to understand because we must assess development within a range, not against a single rigid timeline. You are doing amazingly well. Join our AfroNurse Academy family by subscribing and tapping the notification bell so you never miss a new lesson.
Now we arrive at one of the most debated topics, not just in nursing, but in all of science and philosophy. What shapes who we become? Is it our genes, meaning biology and heredity, or is it our upbringing and surroundings, meaning our environment? This is the famous nature versus nurture debate. Nature, the role of heredity. The nature side of the argument says that our genetic makeup, the DNA we inherit from our biological parents, determines our growth and development. Your height, the color of your skin, your blood type, your susceptibility to certain diseases, your basic temperament, and even some aspects of intelligence are all influenced by your genes. Think about sickle cell anemia, which is a condition that disproportionately affects people of African descent. A child who inherits the genes for sickle cell from both parents will have the disease, regardless of where they grow up or how well they are fed. That is the power of nature. Heredity also sets what we call a reaction range, which is essentially the biological upper and lower limits of a trait. Your genes might give you the potential to be quite tall, for example, but whether you actually reach that maximum height depends on other factors. Nurture, the role of environment. The nurture side says that the environment we grow up in shapes who we become just as powerfully, if not more so. Environment includes nutrition, education, family relationships, socioeconomic status, cultural practices, healthcare access, trauma, and even what a mother eats and experiences during pregnancy. Here is a practical example relevant to our African context. 2 children can be born with identical genetic potential for height, but if one child grows up in a household with adequate nutrition, clean water, and access to vaccines in Dar es Salaam, while the other grows up in a food-insecure household in a conflict area, those 2 children will not reach the same physical outcomes. The environment has intervened.
The modern consensus. It is both. Modern psychology and science have moved well beyond the either-or argument. The consensus today is that both nature and nurture interact constantly. Genes express themselves differently depending on the environment, and the same environment will affect different people differently based on their genetic makeup. This interaction is called gene-environment interaction. As nurses, understanding this is not just academic. When you are caring for a child with delayed development, you must consider both the biological factors, such as genetics and prenatal health, and the environmental factors, such as nutrition, stimulation, safety, and emotional support.
Focusing on only one side gives you an incomplete picture. Let us look at a case study. This is for educational purposes only. Imagine two siblings born 2 years apart to the same parents in a community in eastern Ghana. The older child, Kofi, was born during a period when the family had stable income. His mother had good prenatal care, adequate nutrition, and a low-stress pregnancy. Kofi had regular vaccinations, ate nutritious meals, and attended school from an early age. The younger sibling, Ama, was born during a period of financial hardship. Their mother experienced significant stress and nutritional deficiency during pregnancy. Ama had limited access to healthcare in her early years and frequently missed meals. At age 5, both children are assessed at a community health post. Despite having the same biological parents and therefore similar genetic potential, Kofi is meeting all developmental milestones with ease, while Ama is showing delays in language and fine motor development. This case illustrates perfectly how the same genetic background can lead to very different developmental outcomes when the environmental conditions are different.
Now, let us walk through the recognized stages of human growth and development, from the very beginning of life to old age. Each stage has unique characteristics that you, as a nurse, will encounter in clinical practice. Stage 1, the prenatal stage, conception to birth. Life begins at conception. The prenatal stage is divided into 3 periods. First is the germinal period, which covers the first 2 weeks after fertilization, when the fertilized egg is traveling to and implanting in the uterine wall. Second is the embryonic period, from week 2 to week 8, which is a critical window when all the major organ systems begin to form. This is why exposure to harmful substances like alcohol, certain medications, or infections during this time can cause serious birth defects. Third is the fetal period, from week 9 to birth, when the organs grow, mature, and become functional. For midwives especially, this stage is crucial. Your antenatal care work directly protects fetal growth and development. Stage 2, the neonatal or newborn stage, birth to 28 days. The neonatal period covers the first 28 days of life. This is one of the most vulnerable periods in human existence. The newborn must rapidly adapt to life outside the womb, learning to breathe independently, regulate body temperature, and feed. Nurses and midwives play a life-saving role in this stage through newborn care, early breastfeeding support, and newborn screening. Stage 3, infancy, from 1 month to 1 year. During infancy, the baby undergoes explosive growth and rapid development. Birth weight typically doubles by 5 months and triples by 1 year. The infant develops head control, learns to roll, sit, stand, and often take first steps. Language begins as cooing, then babbling, then first words toward the end of the first year. Emotional attachment, especially to the primary caregiver, is also being established during this stage.
Stage 4, early childhood, 1 to 6 years. Early childhood is sometimes called the preschool years. Physical growth slows slightly compared to infancy, but development of motor, language, social, and cognitive skills accelerates dramatically. Children become mobile, curious explorers. Language explodes. The vocabulary of a 3-year-old can reach around 900 words. Children begin to develop a sense of self, to understand basic social rules, and to engage in imaginative play. Nutrition during this stage is critical, and malnutrition, which is unfortunately still prevalent in many African communities, can have lasting effects on brain development. Stage 5, middle childhood, 6 to 12 years. This is the school-age period. Children are developing logical thinking, but primarily around concrete, tangible things. They are building academic skills, forming peer relationships, and developing a sense of industry and competence. From a nursing perspective, this is an important age for health education because children are now old enough to understand explanations about their health and to participate in their own care. Stage 6, adolescence, 12 to 18 years. Adolescence is one of the most dramatic stages of development, marked by puberty.
Puberty involves rapid physical growth, sexual maturation, and significant hormonal changes. For girls, puberty typically begins between ages 10 and 14, and for boys, between 11 and 16. Alongside the physical changes, adolescents are working through a critical psychological task, which is forming their identity. Who am I? What do I believe? Where do I belong? These are the central questions of adolescence. Peer influence becomes very powerful during this stage, and young people are particularly vulnerable to risky behaviors if they lack proper guidance.
Stage 7. Early adulthood, 18 to 40 years. Early adulthood is typically the peak of physical development. Strength, reproductive capacity, and cognitive function are generally at their highest. The key developmental tasks during this stage involve forming intimate relationships, establishing a career, and often starting a family. Lifestyle choices made during this period, including diet, exercise, smoking, and alcohol use, will significantly influence health outcomes decades later. Stage 8. Middle adulthood, 40 to 65 years. Middle adulthood brings gradual physical changes. Women experience menopause, typically between ages 45 and 55. For men, there is a more gradual decline in testosterone levels. Vision often changes, and the risk of chronic diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease begins to increase. These are conditions that you will see frequently in African clinical settings. Psychologically, people in this stage often reassess their lives and grapple with questions of legacy and meaning. Stage 9. Late adulthood or old age, 65 years and beyond. Late adulthood involves further physical decline. Bone density decreases, increasing the risk of fractures. Muscle mass reduces. The immune system becomes less efficient. Cognitive changes can range from mild forgetfulness to conditions like dementia. However, and this is important, many older adults remain healthy, active, and mentally sharp well into their 80s and beyond, especially with good lifestyle habits and healthcare support. As nurses, you must approach elderly patients with both clinical skill and deep respect. In many African cultures, elders are revered, and your care should reflect that dignity. You should also be aware of age-related changes that affect how medications are metabolized, how wounds heal, and how patients respond to procedures. Here at AfroNurse Academy, we believe every student nurse deserves quality education, no matter where they are in Africa. If this video is helping you, please subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick recap. Growth is physical, measurable changes in size and weight. Development is progressive improvements in function, skill, and ability. Maturation is the automatic, biologically timed unfolding of development. Principles: development is continuous, sequential, cephalocaudal, proximodistal, general to specific, and shows individual differences. Nature versus nurture: both heredity and environment interact to shape who we become. Stages: prenatal, neonatal, infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, middle adulthood, late adulthood. Understanding these stages is not just exam knowledge. Every patient you will ever care for is at a specific developmental stage, and knowing what that stage involves helps you give truly holistic, patient-centered care, which is the heart of nursing. In our next video, we will be covering personality development. We are going to look at how our personalities are formed, what theories say about personality, and why this matters so much for how we interact with patients and colleagues. You do not want to miss it. Thank you so much for learning with us today. This is AfroNurse Academy, and we will see you in the next one.